Here we go again.
Filler quests are one thing that pops up a lot in these kinds of janky games, and of course Deadly Premonition 2 is full of them. Filler quests are intended to be as cheap as possible and take as long as possible. They pad out the player's runtime, that's what they're here for. They use a couple of pretty common techniques to pad out the player's runtime, and let's talk about those techniques and some alternatives that suck less. This church mission is pretty much the ultimate example of how not to make missions meaningful, so let's go through it. The first problem is the setup. We're looking for the last remaining living witness to this murder, a tall lady. We go to the church to find her, and we find her. We watch blankly while she bumps into us, while she tells us something unimportant, while she slowly walks away, while she slowly leaves, while she slowly closes the door behind her, and then we're like, oh right, the last living witness and the only thing we have on this murder case. I guess maybe we should go talk to her. But before we can talk to her, an old man gently grabs our sleeve. And that's way more important than a murder investigation. He wants to eat. He would like us to buy him lunch. So instead of trying to chase down the last living witness and the only lead to our murder investigation, we decide to buy a pastor lunch.
What?
Now this is a surreal game, so we do expect random tangents to happen, but normally those random tangents are there to enhance the feel of the game or allow for characterization. This one does not. This one has 3 characters all acting out of character at the same time, because they want to slow the player down. This is a mystifying writing choice. The tall lady is the jazz bar owner, and we can already go to the jazz bar, so I don't know why they decided to associate her with the church here. Moreover, I don't know why they chose to have our interactions with her get interrupted by the pastor doing this completely nonsense side quest, when they could have done literally anything they wanted and made it about York. For example, maybe York meets her, and then instead of talking to her, holds back. And then the sidekick is like, why didn't you talk to her, York? Didn't you want to talk to her? And York could be like, no, that wasn't the right time. Or, no, this isn't the right place. Something that really highlights the fact that York is the one in control of this investigation and he makes no sense. That's kind of the point of the game, and it would be much, much easier to make that clear if it was York that was responsible for delaying this thing instead of the pastor. York could even have the exact same quest to go buy food items, but he could take it on himself with the understanding that this is what his oracle says is needed in order to have a productive talk with the tall lady. Anything that would give us some agency or forward motion in this quest would be a huge, huge benefit. It would make it feel a lot more natural and a lot less time-wasty. And this is a common problem with writing and time-wasty sorts of quests in these sorts of games. It never connects back to the main character or their characterization in any meaningful sense. It's always just, here's some random thing to go do it. You gotta connect it up to the main character, which is something they're normally pretty good at, but for some reason they completely drop the ball here. This is a total waste of time. Another problem is the actual tasks we're given. We're told to go buy 3 foods. This is a classic map traversal task, aka a fetch quest. Fetch quests are a way to extend your content without having to make anything new because the whole task is simply to move across existing content. That's really boring. Most fetch quests are low priority. They're put in the background so the player can do them as they are doing other more important things. We're here to fight the dragon, and in the process we also happen to have a bar of soap fetch quest. I guess we'll do that since we're here. But you don't generally go to that place to do the fetch quest because that is the most boring task possible. This is the main quest. This is literally what we are supposed to be doing to investigate the crime and move forward with the game. we are being told that our primary task is to traverse the map to various locations and click a button. This is completely inappropriate for a primary task. It's pretty inappropriate for a secondary task. Traversing the map can be quite fun and a very compelling thing to have to do, but it's almost never supposed to be the goal of the game in and of itself. Instead, it's just the way you get to where you want to be, where there is more play. If you want to make traversing the map the main point of the game, then you have to put a lot of effort both into the map and to the mechanics of traversal. I can think of a few games that have done that, but this is not one of them. It's bad form to suggest alternatives, but here's an alternative. Instead of buying canned goods for the pastor, let's say that we have to make a meal to impress the tall lady. We'll make it pizza, because for some reason all of the future scenes contain tremendous numbers of references to pizza, so it would make sense. We have to find some unusual toppings, and then there is a little mini game where we try and actually cook the pizza. That would be a perfectly acceptable quest. We may still have to traverse the map a whole bunch, but the point here is that there is a reason. We are gathering ingredients that we are actually going to use in an actual mini-game to cook up an actual pizza for someone that we actually want to talk to and who's actually involved in our mission. So that's it, right? We gotta go gather 3 ingredients for the pastor and then we can move on, right? No, my child, you are still a baby when it comes to taking up the player's time for no reason. One of the cans of food we can just buy from the sheriff. However, another can of food isn't actually available in the place we thought it was, and instead we have to go and search every single vending machine in the city until we happen to find one that has the thing we want.
This vending machine does not carry what God seeks.
This is another classic way to delay the player. You make it a search quest so the player has to search high and low through the existing space for where you've hidden the one thing they have to find. This is obviously quite cheap to implement, but it has the problem that it happens to be very bad. Let's reorient this a little bit. If our intention is to make the player understand that the map exists and familiarize them with it, rather than having them fail 99 times and succeed once, what we would instead like to do is reward them for going to places on the map. An example would be, we've already established that the cafe owner really likes pictures of the town, so maybe we go take some pictures of the town to prove that we are trustworthy. This is a map traversal quest, but when we get to the location, there is a little mini-game where we have to take a picture and we are allowed to include certain things and not other things or whatever, right? Just something to do when we get there to make it not strictly a map traversal quest. And the point here is that every place we go, we're not only having a success rather than a failure, but we're also getting the opportunity to appreciate what the map is made of. We're literally being asked to look at the map for posterity's sake. I think that's a much better idea, and I'm sure there are a million other ideas that can also be better than randomly search every single vending machine and fail 99% of the time.
Let's move on, Zach.
The last thing we have to buy is the worst. This is the thing that makes the entire quest so aggravating. You know how we decided not to chase that lady because the pastor desperately needed to eat right away? Well, guess what? This dish can only be bought on Mondays. It's Thursday. So the mission is literally wait around for 4 days doing nothing. He's sure gonna be real hungry by then. Now, this is only half of the mainline quest, and obviously the idea is that this forces us to refocus on the other half of the mainline quest, which, as it turns out, is where we get to start to upgrade our skateboard, and the idea is, well, now that you can upgrade your skateboard, clearly you're going to want to cruise around the map on your cool upgraded new skateboard a whole bunch doing all of these fetch quests. But simply saying that you can't do this critical thing because screw you, you can't do it, that's a really difficult proposition. We can't cook red beans with rice on our own. We can't get Chef David to cook us red beans with rice. We can't bribe this lady into making us red beans with rice off of her normal timeline. We have to wait for Monday. That's a stretch. That is really threadbare. The surreality of this game is supposed to be used to enhance the experience, not to simply get in the way for no reason and make it so that the only person capable of cooking red beans with rice in the entire town is this one lady, and only on Mondays. For a better example of time delay quests, you should go play Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden has a large number of dungeon quests which are delayed by time gates. Persona 4's time gating is a lot more acceptable for two big reasons. The first reason is that there are a lot of other things to do. So refocuses you on all of the other things you can do, rather than on nothing. The other thing about Persona 4's time delays is that they're built into the fabric of the universe and assume that the player and the characters are competent. For example, you can't just go rescue the person that you're trying to rescue because you don't know where they are. That's understandable. There is nothing weird about the fact that we just can't find who we're looking for. So how do we find them? Well, we've got to search the daytime world for clues about where the nighttime world might have taken them. So that's a wonderful way to do a time delay. You have to go do the other part of the game because you need something from the other part of the game. We've gone over 4 core no-nos. Don't have disconnected reasoning. Don't have map traversal for the sake of map traversal. Don't have search the map for n random things. And if you've got time delays, make sure they're integrated into your universe in a way that makes the player feel competent rather than completely incompetent. Also make sure the player has something else to do during that time delay. We didn't really discuss grinding. A lot of these kinds of quests involve grinding. Kill 50 wolves before you can move on or whatever. Grinding is not necessarily a filler task in the same way that time delays are not necessarily a filler task. We're going to have to go over that some other day though, because this game doesn't really use grinding very much. It would actually be better if it did, because then there'd at least be something to do.
See? I told you this was gonna be a pain in the butt.